How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Perfect Reload Weekly, where we take a look back at the week in video game news. My name is Steve, and we are in the upgraded moon base. You know, we're out of that drab concrete room, and we have created something new, a command center, if you will, and basically a supersized Dangertron behind me. But unfortunately, Christian Slater has returned. Christian, how you doing this week, man?
Well, I'm back after a long week being naked and afraid in the mountains. I ended up in a pit fight against a Roomba inhabited by the ghost of Terence Trent Darby. I don't think he's going to be a problem, though, considering he's in pieces at the bottom of a wishing well.
I don't think Terence Trent Darby is dead, dude. I think you just got into a fight with a Roomba. But I guess, you know, yeah. Good to have you back. I don't know. So yeah, this week was kind of a slower week. There wasn't too much going on with news. There was no real kind of big video game release, though there was a very interesting video game release, which we'll get into. So yeah, it's the kind of, you know, that summer lull, if you will, you know, good opportunity to kind of catch up on things that you've missed, dive back into games that you haven't played for a while, you know, all that kind of good stuff. But there were a couple of things that came out, and the first of which I guess you would probably say was the biggest release of the week, and that was the new puzzle game Viewfinder, which I guess you would say is a puzzle game in the sense that Portal is a puzzle game. You know, it has a very interesting, novel mechanic. They do some really interesting things with that mechanic. They certainly don't kind of, you know, rest on the first iteration of it, you know, just constantly evolving as you play through the game. And they come up with very interesting solutions to puzzles. There also doesn't seem to be, in most cases at least, one right way to solve a puzzle. And it is a very mind-bending game, kind of a very trippy game. Although it's not like, you know, it's not like a psychedelic visual kind of thing. It's just like, I don't know. It's hard to explain without actually looking at it. Christian, I know you were watching me playing it, and you had some thoughts.
This game is tripping me the fuck out, man. Like, you just see a bridge and it becomes a bridge, and then those giant playing cards spilling out in the air. It's bringing me back to when I thought I was auditioning for Twin Peaks, but it turns out I was just in Europe.
Honestly, yeah, this is like, I assume this is what Europe is like. So the way the game works, and I haven't gone as deep into the game as I wanted to. I had some other projects going on this week that I had to, you know, kind of devote my attention to. But I got through the first, I think like the first chapter, first main part of the game. So I don't want to spoil too much because there's some interesting stuff in there, you know, story-wise. It's not like a super story-focused game. The story is mostly communicated via audio logs that you pick up. There's also a person kind of communicating with you. You don't talk back, at least so far I haven't, you know, totally silent protagonist, which is a little odd because they are having a very one-sided conversation. But the way the game works, at least in the early part, and I'm sure they continue to twist on this formula, is you'll be walking around the world. You know, it's a fully 3D world. It's a first-person perspective game, and you'll approach an impasse, right? The most basic example is kind of what Christian brought up with the bridge. So you will see, you know, there's a path that you're supposed to walk on. You can clearly see the other side of the path, but the walkway is broken. It's missing. It's not there, right? There's just nothingness. And it's too far for you to jump, right? So how would you go about getting across from point A to point B? In a game like Portal, obviously you put the portal on one side, the other portal on the other side, walk through, and there you go. With this game, their kind of twist on that is you will see photographs laying around, and in particular on this specific puzzle, there's a photograph of a bridge. So you pick that up, it adds to your inventory, then you can bring the photo up and you kind of hold it in front of your face, and you can place it in the world. So what you would do is you kind of line up, okay, the left side of the bridge with the one side of where you need to go, the right side of the bridge with the other side you need to go. You place it into the world, and now this bridge exists in the world for you to cross. And that's a very, you know, simple example of it. One that maybe requires a little bit more thought is you see it appears to be like a solar panel, and it's kind of at an incline, and then there's a roof you have to get to, but there's not enough space for you to get there. And the only photo they have for you to play around with is a photo of the side of a building. But what you can do is you can tilt that side of the building and essentially create an extension of the ramp for you to walk up. There are batteries you need to collect to power the ability to exit the level. Each puzzle is kind of its own level. There's a hub world that you go back to multiple times, but you need these batteries to power this teleporter. So you might find 2 batteries laying around, but the teleporter needs a 3rd battery. Well, how are you going to get that 3rd battery? Well, in the photo they provide, there is a battery. Now you could just place that photo in the world, walk into the area that it gives you, pick up the battery, walk back and put it down. Or if you want to, you could take that photo and place it in the sky and let gravity do the work, and the battery will fall out of the photo into your world, and then you could put it onto the platform to power the teleporter. There's some as you go on through the first chapter, there's some interesting puzzle or perspective puzzles where you're not necessarily collecting photographs. You will see in the world slices of an image, and you need to get to the right part of the screen to kind of get the camera angle just right that they all line up into a single image, and then you can walk through. The way that it does work, though, is that whenever you place an image into the world, it deletes anything behind it. So there was a part where I placed a photograph in the world and I got an error message saying that, hey, unbeknownst to you, you actually just deleted the exit to the level. You need to place this somewhere else. So it does prevent you from locking yourself out of finishing a puzzle. Now, there are times where batteries that you need to get are hidden inside walls, so you kind of need to line up to delete the wall. And obviously, you don't know where the battery is, so you might accidentally delete that battery or slice through it and it's no longer functional. So in that case, the game has a rewind mechanic, and I'm playing with an Xbox controller. So you hold down the B button and it will start rewinding, and you'll see little markings in the timeline of, hey, this is when you did this event, so you want to rewind before this event to undo the damage that you have done. Or what's even nicer is you can just double tap that button and it'll automatically zip back to that event. So you can easily, undo any damage that you have done and undo any progress you have made that may be incorrect to better solve the puzzle. So it's very smart in that regard. I'm really enjoying it. I am not good at puzzle games. I struggle with them greatly, but I am really enjoying this. I will admit I had to go to a walkthrough a couple of times because there was a few that I just was not understanding. And, some of the times it wasn't that I didn't understand the solution. It's just I couldn't find the photo. The photos are sometimes in plain sight, just like on an art easel. So it's like, oh, here's an empty art easel and plastered in the middle of it is the photo you need. That's very simple. There are other times where they're just amidst clutter on a table. And I guess for me, it was just very easy for me to miss that. And I walked by. I genuinely at one point thought that the game was just not cooperating because I was reading this walkthrough and I was like, I don't see this photo on this table. It turns out there's a different table in the world where the photo was, so I had to go find it. But there have definitely been a couple of times where I'm like, I don't know if I quite understand what they want me to do here. And, I had to go to a guide for reference. It's like, oh, okay. I don't think I would have naturally arrived at that on my own. I know obviously using a guide and a walkthrough for a puzzle game is super counterproductive because, the fun in the game is figuring it out. But, I've mentioned it before, I don't like to be super challenged when I'm playing games. I don't like to be spending my time banging my head against the wall frustrated. So I understand my natural breaking point, and I would prefer to let it play out naturally. If I figure it out, great. If I don't figure it out, I'm not going to frustrate myself into not wanting to play the game, and I'll just go to, get a hint or, solution or whatever it is. And that allows me to kind of enjoy and complete, games like this. But I know that there's been a lot of games like this that came out years ago. There was definitely a trend once Portal blew up, and specifically Portal 2. There was the other one. I wish I could remember what the name of it was. I always want to say Quadrilateral, but that's Quadrilateral Cowboy, and that's not what I'm thinking of. But it was like you would change like the dimension that the game was in, and I remember one of them was like the fuzzy dimension. Everything kind of had fur on it. And that game actually might have been made by ex-Portal devs because I remember it was very, very Portal-like. But the original Portal I played a little bit of. I never played Portal 2, and I kind of wish that I had at the time, because it would have been cool to kind of better understand that conversation as it was going on when the game was new, because that was definitely a kind of a moment where a lot of video game players were all playing the same thing at once, all having that big, larger conversations. So, I still listened to my regular podcast at the time and, all that kind of stuff, the discourse online. And it would have been nice to maybe had a better understanding of it. But I think that that's probably a game you can go back to at any point in time and enjoy. So maybe that'll be something, we hit, another lull at some point. Maybe I play some Portal 2. I think you just, through osmosis, everybody owns the Portal games if you're on the Steam platform. Although, I actually guess I wouldn't be surprised if I don't own Portal 2 for some reason. I feel like maybe there's some bundle I bought that had it. But Viewfinder, I definitely recommend it. It does not appear to be on Xbox. It is on PC, which is where I am playing it. I believe it is on the PlayStation 5. So yeah, no Xbox release for that, but it is, it's definitely a cool little package. From what I hear, it's not super long. It sounds like maybe 4 to 5 hours is kind of the time frame on that, which, hey, that's a perfectly nice digestible game, especially for a puzzle game. You can only make a puzzle game like that so long. Obviously they really extended Portal 2 with all the story stuff. This game so far, the story is a little weak. I don't want to talk about the story because there is a twist in the game that kind of reveals the greater story that is afoot in the world, so I don't want to give that away. It's very early on in the game, just a handful of missions, and then you kind of crack through the layer of everything that's going on. But it's pretty cool. It's definitely a lot of fun, definitely a little bit of a thinker. So if that sounds like something you're into, I definitely recommend picking it up. Next up was another game that kind of came out of nowhere that I happened to see. I think it was the the new release list on Steam, and the thumbnail just kind of grabbed me combined with the name, and that is Stonks 9800, which can best be described as a stock trading game, similar to a Wall Street Kid from the original Nintendo, and it's mixed with a 1980s Japanese businessman style. The art style in the game is very manga anime-ish. You are playing the game as if you were viewing like a 1980s era Japanese computer. So it has like a CRT filter. And actually, I think their CRT filter work in this game is pretty nice. But the one, and I should mention before I kind of dig into my criticism of the game, that the game is in early access. It's not fully released yet. So I assume some of this will be addressed. But for a game that at the base seems almost kind of like a joke game, it definitely is. And it has a full stock market, trading, buying, all that mechanic to it. I thought maybe it was going to be more like a visual novel, that kind of thing. But no, it is just a straight up like, you are buying and selling stocks and negotiating with companies, and you can buy and sell property and buy and sell vehicles, and you're managing your stress level and all this stuff. But it's wrapped up in this very interesting visual package. It needs a tutorial because that game just throws you in there. And I guess maybe if you understand the stock market really well, like maybe if you're like into day trading or something, like be like, oh yeah, no, I know exactly what I need to do here. If, I don't know, if I watch like Wolf of Wall Street 10 times in a row and, through the power of Matthew McConaughey beating his chest, I start humming as well. And just do a shitload of cocaine, maybe this game would make more sense. But it got to the point where I was just blindly clicking around, and I was like, I have no idea what to do. This game is moving so fast. I am losing money every day. I don't know how to make money. And I was just like, this game is just moving at a rapid pace, and I don't know what to do. So thankfully, I found a video on YouTube of somebody playing the game, and the first thing they did was like, okay, let's pause. And I was like, you can pause? Like, I was like, oh man, that would have been way more helpful. You could just pause, because you just start the game and it's just going, and it's like 5 days in, and your assistant's like, you haven't slept. Maybe you should get some sleep. You're out of money. Like, I was like, oh shit. So yeah, once I figured out that you could pause and take a step back to kind of navigate the menus and read through the different functions of the game, because there's kind of like there's no real tutorial, or at least if there is, I didn't find it, in the person's video I watched didn't mention it. But there is like a menu where you interact with your assistant and you can ask her questions. And I was really hoping that there was just a straight up, how do I play this game? But I didn't find it. But once I figured that out, it's like, okay, this isn't that bad. I need to spend more time with it. Because I ended up, having to watch like a 45-minute long YouTube video to figure out how to play a game. To me, that doesn't bode well. I don't develop games. I'm not publishing games. But if I was making a video game, I would want people to know how to play my game. At first I checked like the Steam page to see like, oh, maybe there's like some documentation or an FAQ or something like that. But I definitely didn't see one. And as someone who is, to put it lightly, math and number challenged, playing a game about finance is definitely not something that I would consider to be in my wheelhouse. But I did enjoy it. I like the look of it, the feel of it. It's pretty cool. Nice little soundtrack there. No voice acting or anything like that. It's a very like chill kind of game, even though it is at a rapid pace. But once you figure out that you can pause and you can slow things down and work, you can kind of work your stuff in it. But yeah, it's funny because like I said, I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a math person. So to find myself like interested in a game about numbers and finance and money and all that stuff was actually kind of interesting. Maybe I need in my personal life, maybe this would help budgeting and finances to get really good at this game. Be like, oh yeah, maybe I can go play the stock market and make some money,
if you want to trade some stocks, I know a guy. He handles my money, Wesley Snipes' money, and I think he got Nick Cage that dinosaur head.
Yeah, I don't want to deal with anybody that had anything to do with the personal finances of you or any of your friends. But yeah, that's Stonks 9800. And then I guess the other thing that I'll touch upon is, so last week when friend Davis was here, hosted the show with me, thanks again for him to take time out of his schedule to do that. It was a fun show. And we talked about Noclip did a documentary about Immortality, which was my favorite game of last year. And then this past week, they released a documentary about Vampire Survivors. And I played a ton of Vampire Survivors at the beginning of last year when it was kind of really taking shape and gaining popularity. And I played a little bit of it later on in the year when it came out on Game Pass. Playing it with a controller is still kind of weird. I liked the tactile feel of using the keys on a keyboard. But, sometimes it's nice to just have it as a convenience, to sit in the living room and play it. But I watched the Vampire Survivors documentary that they did, and I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I should go play some Vampire Survivors. It's been a while. I don't have any of the DLC that they've done or anything like that. But, just to kind of get back in. And I didn't have much unlocked on the Xbox version of the game, because like I said, I played most of my time on the PC version. So I got back into playing it this week, and I've actually put a couple of hours back into playing it. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's kind of been a game where, at night, just kind of play 20, 30 minutes of it, try and get a really good run and unlock a bunch of stuff, or, get a run and make a ton of money. And I had a run, last night, last night for me. And, I unlocked stuff I didn't know you could unlock. I ended up getting like weapon combinations that I had only seen other people use, that I hadn't experienced yet. Tripped some crazy ass treasure chest, that was spitting out upgrades and all this stuff left and right. And it was like 1,000 gold coins. And I was like, oh man, that's like on the run of my life. And then, got to the point, if you play Vampire Survivors, it's kind of like a reverse bullet hell, where, if you're really playing that game and everything's working right, you can kind of almost stand still as enemies converge upon you and just, they're just mowed down by all the crazy stuff you got going on. And it was definitely kind of cool to be like, I can just take my hands off the controller right now and just watch everything die. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun to get back into playing that game. It's such a simple concept, but it's so well executed. So yeah, if for some reason you haven't played Vampire Survivors, I definitely recommend checking out, especially during the summer right now. Right, it's a bite-sized experience. Go in there and do some runs and have some fun with it. But yeah, that was pretty much for this week. I don't think I played anything else. I think next week, or well, this week as you guys are watching it, I mentioned it last year that it was the game that I wish I had played last year, but didn't have the time to, and it was Arcade Paradise. And that was a game I was really looking forward to. I was following it along until it finally came out. And then I just didn't end up picking it up and was just listening to other people talk about how great it was. And I realized, like, oh man, at the end of the year last year, I mentioned, like, I'm going to play this game in January, and here we are in almost August, and I still haven't played that game. So I downloaded it, it's installed, it's ready to go, and I think this coming week I'm going to finally dive into it because I believe this is yet another week without much going on. So yeah, a good time to kind of clean things up, get back into some old stuff, and then on the stream last week I messed around with some mods with Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm kind of still screwing around with that. I took this week off from streaming because, like I said, just a lot of stuff going around the house. I cut down 4 trees yesterday. I'm out there lumberjacking it. And I was just, after doing, just yard work all day, cutting down trees and then moving them, around, eventually you kind of tire yourself out, and I just didn't have it in me to stream. But I was thinking, maybe we do another Red Dead stream, but maybe played a little more straight. Last time I was really screwing around with the mods. The second half of that stream was a lot of fun, just spawning animals in weird locations, turning on exploding bullets, all that crazy stuff. But yeah, there's something just calling to me with Red Dead 2 where I just want to spend more time in that world. And I just really want to kind of get back into it. So maybe we'll stream some more of that, or maybe we'll find something else along the way. But yeah, we'll definitely be having another stream this week. But yeah, that's going to wrap up what I've been playing, and we'll be back in just a moment with the news. All right, we are back with the news, and it feels like it's the story that will just not end, but hopefully this is the last we have to talk about it for a little bit. But Microsoft and Blizzard, they kind of passed the hurdle in the United States. We talked about that last week. Microsoft also announced that they've entered a binding agreement with PlayStation to keep Call of Duty going for, I believe it was a decade. But coming up real quick, and it was this past Tuesday, was the deadline for them to actually complete their merger. So they announced that they are going to extend that deadline all the way out until October 18th because they actually still have one final hurdle left, and that is the CMA. The CMA is the Competition and Markets Authority. That is what is happening in the United Kingdom in terms of why the deal hasn't gone through. It's because they are the last to have not approved the deal. So this gives them time to figure this out. So Microsoft President Brad Smith was quoted as saying, "Together with Activision, we are announcing the extension of our merger agreement to October 18th to provide ample time to work through the final regulatory issues. We will honor all commitments agreed upon with the EC and other regulators and continue to work with the CMA on the issues raised in the United Kingdom. We are confident about our prospects for getting this deal across the finish line." So England's, or I keep saying England and the United Kingdom are not interchangeable. It's just in my mind, I always think of this as something that is happening in England. But it is the entirety of the United Kingdom, so not just England. So I apologize for always mixing those two up. But I guess to kind of go along with this, the CMA is, I don't want to necessarily say they're playing hardball, but they obviously have a lot of issues with this, but they are kind of extending Microsoft a little bit of a lifeline by extending their own deadline for a final decision until August 29th. So they get roughly another month. So there's been a lot of talk about what is this actually going to mean in the United Kingdom. And it seems like what most people that are definitely more well-versed in legal issues and in dealing with a court case like this have said that a very likely scenario is that, the deal will go through, but it kind of just won't affect the United Kingdom. So an example of that would be, they closed the deal and they put all the Black Ops games, the Modern Warfare games on Game Pass, all that stuff. But if you have Game Pass in the United Kingdom, you would not receive those games. They would just not release on there. It's possible maybe Microsoft makes good and does some UK exclusive Game Pass games, or they just don't do anything to maybe perhaps upset their customer base over there to kind of petition like, hey, we're losing out on features and functionality that the rest of the world has with Game Pass. I don't live in the United Kingdom, so I can't say like if that would actually make a difference or not. But we have seen times in America where customers protest about things. That's more specifically with the video game industry because they're a little bit more willing to make changes and have seen change happen. I don't know how well that plays out in the rest of the world. But if that's what ends up happening to get this deal done, it sucks for the video game players of the Xbox and PC players in the United Kingdom. But their country feels, or not their country, but their territory feels that they have a good reason for why this should not go through. And if they want to stick to their guns, then that's their prerogative to do so. But I kind of hope that this is the last we hear about this for a little bit, because it really has been kind of dominating the headlines. And maybe that's just because Sony is kind of laying low right now. Nintendo's kind of laying low right now. There's just not a lot happening with the other video game companies. And right now, Microsoft's got a lot of irons in the fire, and there's a lot of stuff happening. And to be completely honest, every single news story on this show this week is related to Xbox, because there's nothing else really going on right now with Nintendo and PlayStation. They're just kind of in a holding pattern. But it would be nice to kind of just get this over and done with. I was thinking about this the other day. If this opens up the floodgates for these games to come to Game Pass, I'm curious what they actually put out. I assume we would just get all of the Call of Duties and all that stuff. They have said multiple times that Diablo 4 would not come to Game Pass. I think eventually it probably would, but not right now. But I think it would be nice if that Diablo 2 kind of remastered edition came if they put Overwatch 2 on there, if they put Diablo 3 and all their expansions on there. There was a conversation on a podcast I listened to this week where they were talking about, like, what if they put World of Warcraft on Game Pass? That's possible. I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that. Instead of having to pay a monthly subscription, they get you in there in the hopes you would spend money on expansions or whatever else you can purchase in there. It's not the worst idea in the world, because player count for World of Warcraft has certainly, been on a downward trend. It's certainly no longer the juggernaut that it once was. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it breathes some new life into that. But they don't, Activision and Blizzard, they don't pump out a ton of games. Activision used to, they'd flood the market with games. That doesn't really happen anymore. It's, and even it was funny when the Bethesda thing went through and all of the Bethesda and Bethesda subsidiaries like id and Machine and all that put their games out. I remember that day specifically logging into Game Pass, and it was all of a sudden there was like 30 something new games. And I remember looking at it and I was like, yes, this is okay. This is a lot of games, but wait, this is it? Like, this is all they have? This is kind of all they have? Like, you just, you kind of feel like, oh, it's all these companies coming together. It's got to be 50, 60, 70 games. And it was like, oh, no, it's like half that, And I get the feeling that it's kind of going to feel the same with this once the deal is through and those games get tossed up. But, I don't know. I think at this point it's a foregone conclusion that this deal is going through. We'll just have to see, I guess. Is it going to affect United Kingdom? Are they going to give in and say, okay, the rest of the world says this is okay, I guess it's fine, or are they going to hold firm and maybe alienate the United Kingdom customer base? We'll see.
Yo, when is this shit gonna end? Just put Phil Spencer in jail already so we can all move on.
Dude, this is the last time I'm going to tell you. This is not a criminal trial, a criminal case. Do you have like a personal vendetta with Phil Spencer? Maybe you can head back to spring break next year and try and hunt him down. I saw how well that ended up for you this year. But all right, so moving on, some Activision news. Although I guess this is not specifically tied to Call of Duty, but there have been a ton of leaks coming out that there will be It's we know at this point there will be a Call of Duty game this year, although we haven't heard about it yet. The summer kind of game spotlight stuff has kind of come and went. Gamescom is still yet to happen, but for the most part, all of that stuff has happened, and we didn't get anything. But a lot of leaks have come out saying that not only is there going to be a new Call of Duty in 2023. After previously Activision saying that there wouldn't be, that Modern Warfare 2 would hold the franchise for 2 years, and the game would just be updated for those couple of years to give their teams a break to come back with a fresh idea in 2024. And they very quickly backtracked on that, which really threw me off of Modern Warfare 2. It was one of my favorite games of last year, but man, the maps were just not good. They made a lot of really weird decisions with that game, not having a hardcore mode at launch, replacing it with that tier 1 mode that no one really liked. I did like the addition of the third person mode. I thought that was pretty cool. I ended up spending a lot of time with it. But it just got to the point where the maps that were coming out were just maps I didn't want to play. I really wanted to see, let's take some of those classic Modern Warfare 2 original maps and put them into the new game, and it just didn't really happen. So they're kind of, I guess, rectifying this in a way by saying that all the Modern Warfare 2 content will go to Call of Duty 2023, which I guess is the title that we're going with. Although it seems like everybody is well aware that it is actually going to be Modern Warfare 3, because there have been a ton of leaks. And Activision has kind of had to come out and start posting on Twitter, essentially confirming that the leaks are true. But it looks like the stuff from Modern Warfare 2, like your weapons, your operators, which are the characters that you can pay for or unlock, they will be coming over. Some data leaks came out saying that they're going to bring back the older style of the mini map, which wasn't present, which upset a lot of players. The ninja perk, which has been gone, is coming back. You will be able to equip gear on your character, like helmets, gloves, etc., and that will be kind of how the perk system works. There were some screenshots that went around. I actually didn't see them. They did a pretty good job of taking them down, but I also didn't really dig deep enough. I'm sure I could have found them if I really wanted to see them. The quote that's really weird is, this is taken from Video Games Chronicle, but I believe the original quote is from a Bloomberg article in which a representative from Activision said, the quote kind of happens in the middle of the sentence, but essentially their goal for the next Call of Duty game is to, quote, make it feel like a standalone full price release, but also an extension of Modern Warfare 2. And that's really difficult, because if this game is going to be so tied to Modern Warfare 2, it's going to feel like you're paying $70 for DLC and not $70 for a brand new game. And that's kind of tough, because that's the sports game conundrum, right? Like most years, sports games just feel like a roster update for $70. Sure, you get some nice graphical upgrades here and there, but in the case of something like Madden, they like remove features and function from the game, on a yearly basis. I'll give NBA 2K credit by at least, putting some new game modes in, always making gameplay tweaks, changes to the shooting system, off-ball movement, stuff like that. But they're still, riddled with microtransactions, and that is kind of the downfall of that game. But I think it's going to be really, really difficult for them to make this not feel like DLC, because I think Call of Duty's been in a weird spot, and I'm speaking as someone who plays a lot of Call of Duty. I'm certainly not as dedicated as a lot of players. I'm not spending 1,000 hours in the game. I'm not grinding it every night. I don't play Warzone. I just play the traditional multiplayer. But my take on it is that Call of Duty dropped off hard after Modern Warfare 2. Modern Warfare 3 is pretty much forgettable. Stuff like Ghosts, Infinite Warfare, mostly forgettable. Black Ops breathed some new life into the franchise when those were coming out, but they ended up doing 4 of them, and by the last one, it was just kind of, I don't know, I'm just not interested in it. And then they ran into a really interesting situation, because they have multiple teams making the game. So like one year you would get the Sledgehammer game, and then one year you would get the Treyarch game, like that kind of thing, right? And this was mostly notable when the last Modern Warfare came out, the reboot Modern Warfare, which was 2019. And that game played so well. It was such an amazing experience. I thought the maps were really good. The weapon selection was really good. The perks were fun. It just played so smoothly and so nicely. Like I had so much fun playing that game. Well, then the next year, that game was not made by that same team, so it didn't play the same. It felt different, and in many ways, it felt dated. And then they go back to the well with World War II, which was a really weird situation. The map selection of that game I actually thought was all right. I thought there were some solid maps in Vanguard. And I liked the game to an extent, but it was just like, it just wasn't quite there. And then when Modern Warfare 2, it's like, okay, we're back into it. We're back to the modern setting. I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying the weapons in this game. I played more of Modern Warfare 2 than I did of the original Modern Warfare, despite ultimately I think I probably preferred the first one. But the issue that I had with Modern Warfare 2 last year is the map selection it was just not good. There were very few maps in that game that I was excited to play. It really got to the point where there were some maps where they would come up in the rotation and I would just exit the game before the match loaded because I was just like, I don't want to play on this map. I don't like it. It's not well designed. It's not fun. I'm not having fun playing this game. And so what ended up happening was, and obviously this is my choice to play the game like this, but they started doing those 24/7 shipment rotations, and I would just do that. And so I was essentially playing the game locked into one map. But even though I was locked into one map, I was having way more fun with the game than I was in the regular game mode. And I really got into this kind of fun, at least fun for me, kind of challenge of let's actually unlock these camos. Let's unlock the gold guns and the platinum. Let's actually go down that rabbit hole in a way that I never had before, really. And that was a ton of fun. And then one day they're like, hey, we're going to get rid of shipment 24/7. And you're going to be back to just having the original maps to run through. And I stopped playing the game because I just didn't want to play those maps. I would play it here and there. When a new season would start, I'd check it out kind of. And then it got to the point where I didn't check out the last season at all. I haven't turned the game on in quite some time. So I was thinking about maybe getting back into it to check it out, to kind of see where it's at, see what's going on with the game as it stands. I assume if this game is coming out in 2023, maybe November's a little bit open right now. And we're almost in August, so just a few months there. So maybe play a little bit of Modern Warfare 2 and see kind of where we're at as we're getting closer and closer to the launch of what appears to be Modern Warfare 3. So maybe that's something we'll do on the channel soon. But I assume this game is going to play from a gameplay perspective very similar to the last game, same people making it. But I really, really hope they find some way to make these maps better. I don't know if they need to hire new people with new ideas. They need to give them maybe some more creative freedom. I don't know what the issue is, but those maps in the last game just felt bland. They felt uninspired, poorly executed. The spawn placement was bad on some of them. You ended up getting unwillingly locked into gameplay loops on some of those maps where it's just like, well, the only viable strategy to really not get killed immediately is to play it this kind of way. And then it's just not fun because I feel like I can only play this map or attack this map from a strategy perspective in this one singular way. And it's not fun. So I hope they kind of learn a lesson from that and we move on. So, and we're going to move on to the next story. Back to Xbox, right? So Xbox Live is dead. They are getting rid of Xbox Live Gold, and they are replacing it with Xbox Game Pass Core, which is going to begin in September. So Xbox Live has been the catch-all term for their online service, right? We are in an era where still to this day on Xbox and PlayStation, you have to pay them a monthly fee in order to play multiplayer in games. Now, they kind of help you out with that, I guess, in a way, by providing you some perks. So PlayStation Plus and Xbox games with Gold essentially will give you some free games every month for subscribing to their service to play games online. And then that kind of got a little murky on the Xbox side as they launched Game Pass a while ago, and you had this whole library of stuff, and you could just subscribe to that service. You know, most people, I would say, I guess unless you don't have a gaming computer, but I would say it seems like most people just have Xbox Ultimate or Game Pass Ultimate, which gets you Game Pass on PC, Game Pass on Xbox, and the ability to play your games, multiplayer on the system. Sony has now since also done their kind of PlayStation Plus Vault, although I don't like it because there's several tiers to it. They gatekeep content depending on how much money you're giving them every month. And I also think that their selection of games is weaker simply because they are not in a position where they are going to put their big first-party games anywhere near launch on that service, whereas Xbox puts all first-party games on Game Pass. It's two different business strategies. It's not to say that Sony is wrong for doing that. It's what works for them. I honestly don't mind that they don't do that. It's fine. I'll pay for those games. It's not a problem. I think it's easier to digest with Microsoft because some of those games are games that I would only play if I didn't have to pay for them. I would not have checked out Redfall this year if I had to pay $60 or $70 for it. I wouldn't have played Exoprimal this year, despite it's not a first-party game, but it is a bigger game that came out. But I wouldn't have paid for that game if it wasn't on as part of Game Pass. So what Game Pass Core is going to be? It's going to be $10, which is the same price you were paying if you had Xbox Live Gold, or $60 if you want to pay for a year all at once, which isn't a bad deal. $5 a month. It will get you the ability to play your games online just like you had, and a library of over 25 games and exclusive member deals. It has been a little strange with their wording. The way they said it was new titles will be added to Game Pass Core 2 to 3 times a year. Did not say how often games would be removed from Game Pass Core. I assume probably 2 to 3 times a year they would just cycle things out. But here is the list of games that you will have in September. Among Us, Descenders, Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fable Anniversary, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Forza Horizon 4, Gears 5, Grounded, Halo 5 Guardians, Halo Wars 2, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, Human Fall Flat, Inside, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Psychonauts 2, State of Decay 2, and The Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited. I think that's a pretty solid variety of games. There's not a lot that I would actually be interested in playing right now, either because I have already played them or I just don't have an interest in playing them. But, if you are a person who is gaming on a budget, where you are relying on something like Games with Gold, or, if you were getting Game Pass, because let's be honest, even $15 for Game Pass, sometimes it's out of the budget for people. Just because you don't make a lot of money or don't have a lot of money shouldn't exclude you from having video games as a hobby. That's why used games exist. You can get games on the cheap. So I think if you are gaming on a really significant budget where you could only afford the $10 a month and you can't afford the $15 or I think I pay $18 a month for Game Pass Ultimate, if that's just not in your wheelhouse, because sometimes those $5 to $8 that makes a huge difference for people. I think this gets you a really good variety of games. Some games that are long, some games that you can really dig some time into. Fallout 4 is going to provide you a ton of time. Forza Horizon 4 is going to provide you a ton of time. Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout 76 are MMOs, that gives you a lot there. There's some fun multiplayer games like Human Fall Flat. I think it really is a nice selection of stuff for you to dig into. So I think that this is probably a better thing than the Xbox Games with Gold, because I think Games with Gold, for a while, it's been quite some time since I saw the list of I think it's 2 games, maybe sometimes it's 3, that come out, and it's like, I'll play that. I'll download that. I don't think I've gotten one of the Games with Gold things in, I don't know, a couple of years, maybe. It's been quite some time. Even with PlayStation Plus, there's not often something come out where it's like, oh yeah, no, I'll pick that up. Every once in a while, sure. It's been a little bit more frequent lately with the bigger monthly dump of the PlayStation Plus kind of collection games. That are interesting to me, or I pick some stuff up. But I think that this gets people more in line with what they're trying to do at Microsoft, which is, they want everybody to have a Game Pass subscription, an experience Game Pass, because maybe this will take some people and be like, you know what, I can't afford a few extra dollars a month. Let me just get the full version of Game Pass, and it just keeps them in that Xbox ecosystem. So I think it's ultimately a smart move for Microsoft. All right. Last story this weekend is going to be a little bit of a shorter show. There's not that much going on, and I don't feel like rambling about the same old. So, yeah, we're bringing back the mid-2000s, because right now on Xbox, 5 out of the top 10 best-selling games are Call of Duty games from the Xbox 360 era.
I hope they don't fix their servers. Selling hacks is my passive income.
Yeah, you are right. Fixing servers is a key thing with this. So they have fixed some issues that are allowing people to get back into playing these games on Xbox Live, I guess. We'll still use that for another month or so. So a ton of people have flocked back to playing these 360 games. And some content creators that I follow that focus on Call of Duty, they've even put up some videos saying like, hey, let's go play some Modern Warfare 2. Let's go play some Black Ops, stuff like that. But the servers are a big issue, because a lot of these games have been overrun by hackers, cheats, all that stuff. There have been reports of people playing for a couple hours, not running into any issues whatsoever. And there's been reports of people saying like, hey, I played for 5 minutes and got completely kicked out, and the game's just not working for me anymore. So I'm curious what they're going to do with this. It's one thing to get everything up and running so they can get back on there, but are they going to try and do any maintenance on these servers to get rid of some of the cheating, to get rid of some of the hacks? Because if these games are this popular that they are, they're not on Game Pass right now, you have to purchase them. Right now, they are on sale. I was going through the Xbox Marketplace a couple nights ago just to see if there are any sales going on that I was interested in. I did notice that a lot of these games were half off. I think it was like $10 for Modern Warfare 2, like stuff like that. So people are willing to spend money on it. So let's fast forward a little bit in time to when these games probably inevitably come to Game Pass, and even more people are playing them because they're like, oh, it's just readily available. All I got to do is wait the time to install it, and I can go back and relive high school and play some Modern Warfare 2. What's that experience going to be like if they get back into that game and they're, headshotted from outside the map immediately, like that kind of thing? Are they actually going to try and fix some of these problems to get them up and running? Because I think putting all of these games on there, like I said, if people are willing to spend money on it, even more people are going to be willing to play it when it becomes, no additional financial risk due to their, the money they're already spending on Game Pass. It's going to be flooded for people coming back in. So I'm really curious how that works. It's not something that really comes up all that often. You see it in the PC space. People will fix some stuff, but a lot of times, it's for games where maybe the main servers are no longer functional, and fans have taken it upon themselves, or it was a game where it was, you were kind of running your own server kind of thing. I think you see that with like Phantasy Star Online 2. There's some other stuff out there. But I want to know what they do with it, because, man, I'd love to jump back into some Modern Warfare 2. I'm sure I am so far used to modern Call of Duty that would probably be a clunky, rough go of it for me. But I am really curious to at least spend a little bit more time, or spend some time again in these games that I played, during actually I was out of high school when that game came out, but had some fun memories. I think I actually talked about it last week on the show when Davis was here. I went to the midnight release of Modern Warfare 2, and it was a couple buddies and we went back to the one guy's house and we played like all night. We got home probably about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, played until 4 a.m. multiplayer, and then I went back home and probably got home about 4:30 in the morning and played through the first hour of the story mode to that game. I remember I was still living at home at the time. My parents getting up to go to work, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm playing this game." There's the degenerate days of still living at home and not having a job at the time. So yeah, some interesting memories there, but positive memories with the game at least. So yeah, it would be kind of fun to dive back into to some of that. But yeah, that's going to that's going to wrap things up for this week. I'm not sure what's coming out on the channel this week. There'll be something at least. We'll stream at some point, so check the community tab, and I'll put all the info in there. But yeah, other than that, Christian, you got anything to say before we hit the road here?
This new set feels like I'm in the lawnmower, man. I always thought I had the range to play Pierce Brosnan.
Me too, man. I could be James Bond, right? Like, why aren't they calling me? The two of us together, man. We'll be the James Bond twins. We'll twist on the formula. But yeah, that's it for this week. Take it easy, and we'll see you soon.